was clear that Israel was committing war crimes. I've heard UK politicians denying that, and to an extent even justifying this. They should be investigated. Their responsibility should be investigated by UK authorities.
How complicit is Britain in Gaza's genocide? Could British ministers and military officials end up at the International Criminal Court? Joining me to answer these questions is one of the world's leading human rights lawyers, Francesca Albanese, who is also the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine.
Thank you, Mark.
Francesca, really, thank you very much. Can I come on to ask you about UK policy towards Israel? When you look at British policy, British government stances towards Israel during the destruction of Gaza over the last 15 months, how would you characterize that?
I believe that the UK has violated its obligations under international law. I have concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Israel had committed acts of genocide already 1 year ago. And my assessment has become stronger, more supported by evidence, more endorsed by many other reputable actors, including Israeli historians themselves, Amnesty International and others. I do not expect necessarily the UK government to embrace my findings. However, because last year in January, the ICJ concluded that there was a plausible risk that the rights of the Palestinians protected under the Genocide Convention were being violated, then this triggered the obligation of the UK to make sure that they took all the necessary measures to prevent genocide from happening. The extent of the UK obligation in this respect is linked to the degree of influence that the UK has over Israel. And the UK is a close partner of Israel. It has influence. Not only that, but the UK has also continued to provide political support, military support. Thanks to you, we know that there has been also military cooperation. Not necessarily, as far as I understand, it's not proven that it has been for the conduct of hostilities, but there has been military cooperation between the UK army and the Israeli army. This is in violation of the UK obligations. De jure and de facto, it's aiding and assisting Israel in the commission of a series of international wrongdoing. Hence, it should be held accountable.
And when you talk there about aiding and abetting Israel, we've done a lot of work on the various aspects of military cooperation that you're talking about, such as the surveillance flights that the Royal Air Force has been conducting over Gaza in aid of Israeli intelligence, the army training that the UK has been providing to Israel in the UK, the arms exports, and so on. And the UK still regards Israel as a prominent defence partner. Do you think that makes the UK a participant in the destruction of Gaza, in the genocide?
Surely, the UK has done nothing to prevent the destruction of Gaza. Militarily, it has continued to supply Israel in violations of its obligations. And again, the UK has incredible lawyers, and I cannot believe that the government was not advised on what it was doing. It was clear that Israel was violating, again, let aside the genocide assessment, but it was clear that Israel was committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. I've heard UK politicians denying that, and to an extent even justifying this. Therefore, they should be investigated. Their responsibility should be investigated by UK authorities. And the extent to which this might lead to responsibility, I cannot establish right now, because again, there should be an investigation looking at their level of knowledge, their level, what they have authorized as people, because there is individual liability. There's criminal liability for complicity with international crimes. And it's not a joke. I mean, it seems to me, Mark, that in general, Western politicians have taken the violation of international law lightheartedly, and they are very wrong. So now it's time for them to face the consequences.
I wanted to ask you about something that happened last week, because last week Declassified got a tip-off that an Israeli general was visiting London, and we filmed him on camera visiting London, right in the centre of the capital.
General Bashir, what did you discuss with the MOD? Are you worried about the ICC investigating you for war crimes? Are you a war criminal, General Bashir?
And subsequently found out that he was having meetings with the Ministry of Defense, the Foreign Office, the Cabinet Office. This was a very senior Israeli general, actually the third highest ranking general in the Israeli Defense Forces, someone that's been intimately involved in Israeli military operations over the last 15 months. I wanted to ask what your reaction was to this Israeli general suddenly appearing on the streets of London and having these high-level meetings with British officials.
The Western system has huge ties with Israel. And Israel, there's no doubt, is quintessentially a military state, a militarized and military state that has been providing advised intelligence services, technologies, weapons tested on the Palestinians to many states. So, are we surprised to see Israeli military high ranking officials walking freely in the streets of London or Rome? It's as shocking as it's not surprising. And it's not even surprising the hubris of these people thinking that they can continue enjoying the impunity. It's up to us, ordinary citizens and people of with solid principles and trust in international legal system to make it enforceable and enforced.
And I mean, and really, they should be arrested, shouldn't they? I mean,
It
senior
should be an
Israeli
investigation.
military figures coming to a Western country, isn't it the obligation of
Presumption
state?
of innocence, it's to be enjoyed by everyone, but there should be an investigation. The point is that we come from 15 months of brutal assaults that has killed nearly 50,000 people ascertained by sniper fire or bombs in Gaza. So a high-ranking official in the military, in the Israeli military, chances are that he has contributed to take decisions that have led to the commission of crimes. So, again, the fact that this gentleman was walking freely in the street of London undisturbed till someone from your crowd joined him and started asking questions shows the level of safety that they have always enjoyed. And even now, they think that there is nothing they need to respond to.
Can I ask you a specific question about the surveillance flights that we both mentioned earlier that the RAF has been conducting from Cyprus over Gaza, which the British government have said is in support of the location of the hostages, but which there have been concerns that the purpose of those flights could actually be wider and could in some way have been aiding Israeli military operations. But since the ceasefire started, those flights have continued. I mean, we've found evidence that at least 2 RAF flights have been surveilling territory near Gaza. Do you consider that a breach of the ceasefire?
There is a clear obligation not to aid and assist a state in the commission of crime. So if it's proven that those flights have served purposes others that have led to the commission of crimes, there might be a responsibility, a co-responsibility of British authorities.
See, one of our concerns is who is actually going to do those investigations? Because if the domestic authorities in the UK are not investigating the Ministry of Defence and are not requiring, the Defence Minister to give evidence in Parliament or to comply with any investigations, how are we ever going to find out what exactly their relationship to the Israelis is?
The reason why many politicians do not engage with the possibility that Israel has committed crime is because they are telling themselves a lie, that gives them the impression, or giving their audiences the impression that they're fine, there is nothing wrong, but it's unbelievable. Of course, they know that there is something wrong. Of course, they know that starving people is a crime. Of course, they know that bombing hospitals is a crime. And on a systematic and widespread scale, as Israel has done, without providing evidence, because even the fact that Al-Shifa was the headquarters of Hamas, how much has it been sold on Western media and by Western politicians? Where is the evidence? They can continue to lie, but they cannot hide from justice. This is why I know it seems a long shot, but it is to be pursued. So this is why I think, eventually there is a accountability in court, but there is also accountability before the people. And the backlash that the politicians who have been partaking in international crimes can face in a country like the UK, where it seems to me from outside that people in the street, ordinary citizens, and are very sympathetic and they're very concerned with what's happening in Palestine or Israel-Palestine, and therefore will not let it go. So there will be other forms of accountability if justice doesn't kick in immediately.
And I wanted to ask you a question about the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, because you've called David Lammy on several occasions a genocide denier.
Quite properly, legal terms that must be determined by international courts. The way that they are used now undermines the seriousness of that term.
I wonder what you think the consequences for him as a minister, as the Foreign Secretary, should be for being a denier of genocide.
I find it interesting that he has really dismissed the proofs, the evidence why Israel has committed genocide. I do understand why he has done it, why he might have done it, to deflect responsibility both of Israel and possibly the UK government. But he, as a foreign minister, he's obliged to sit down and respond. Why does he think that my arguments, my legal assessment, the assessment of Amnesty International and now dozens of organizations and Israeli historians, what are the arguments that he uses to dismiss what we have brought to the fore as evidence? So very specific questions need to be asked. How it's possible that Israel has hit over 200 times humanitarian zones? How it's possible that Israel, you have considered legitimate the evacuation of 1.1 million people under the threat that they would be considered an affiliate with terrorism? How does he justify, how does he comment on the Amalek language that has been used and relaunched by Israeli political leaders and soldiers on the ground?
You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible, and we do remember, and we are fighting our brave troops and combatants who are now in Gaza.
Does he understand what Amalek is in the Israeli society, which is a genocidal call? I'm not interested in David Lammy's opinion per se. He's a foreign minister, therefore he needs to respond in an articulated way on very specific questions. How does he dismiss the claims that Israel has committed acts of genocide? And if not, how does he qualify what Israel has committed? War crimes? So how does he justify, in the face of the commission of war crimes, the UK continuous support to the state of Israel? These are the very specific questions that the David Lammy needs to be asked and needs to answer.
One final question, Francesca, if I may, about international law. I was wondering what you think the consequences will be for the international legal system going forward when states can't even bring themselves to even identify violations of international law in the context of a genocide. I mean, what does that mean for the future of protecting international law? The next time a state conducts an aggression against another state or a set of people, Has the international system been set up to fail?
Yes. Yes, and it's already failing, because look at what has happened to the civilian population in Lebanon. And it's not even, I can't even use the past tense, because Israel has resumed the bombardment of southern Lebanon. I said 1 year ago, Israel has definitely created or has introduced us brutally, violently to a world without civilians, where everything is everything is targetable, everyone is skillable, everything is destroyable. And without evidence, without justification, without respect for the principle of distinction, proportionalities, precautions, which are the basic tenets of modern post-World War II international law applicable to armed conflict. Israel and the United States, or with the support of the United States, with the cover of the United States, has been attacking other Arab countries and capitals with impunity. The same impunity they have enjoyed in slaughtering Palestinians and imposing an apartheid regime over the Palestinians, the same impunity they are enjoying as they attack other countries. So international law is proving more and more ineffective by the day. And this is a situation in which everyone loses, because we are embracing, or we have entered, a lawless world. And especially for us in the West, it's going to bring incredibly negative consequences, because we are those who have benefited the most from the international legal system that was created in the aftermath of the Second World War. So we should be more careful, and we are not.
Thank you very much, Francesca, for talking to me.